Let me, yeah, I'll start this off and off we go. So it's my pleasure to have this opportunity to speak to you. I'll kick this off with a brief introduction, and then we can move to the sketches in the book. So Carl, what I meant to do today, as we have this 30-minute conversation, is to try and introduce you to the Brazilian public a little bit better. I think over here maybe your work is not it's not recognized, not recognized is not the
Not as
word,
well
but
known.
yes,
Yeah.
not what as well known. So we're speaking both to advisors on one side and to clients of ours and the general public on the other. So I'll try and to mix and match a little bit of the message for both.
Yeah.
But since that's the case, what I thought it'd be nice to start with is to invite you to tell us a little bit about your trajectory up until this point. So you were a financial advisor, and a little bit of how that came about to be. Like what
Yeah.
got you into the financial advisory business, and then a little bit of everything that
Yeah.
took us to this point.
Yeah. I mean, thanks, Nars. It's a kind of a funny story. I'll try and tell a short version of it, but um, when I was in college, I was applying for a job. I needed a job and I needed to work like nights or weekends and so I could still go to school. And I read an ad in the newspaper that I thought had something to do with security. So like maybe like a mall cop or like some sort of security job. And I thought, well, that would be great because there'd probably be a night shift. And I went to apply for the job, and there's a very close word in English that's securities.
Yeah.
And when I went to the interview, I realized they weren't asking me about my self-defense skills, but they were asking me about things like stocks and bonds. And I didn't know what they were really at the time. I had heard of them, but then I realized the job I had applied for was a securities job, not a security guard job. And somehow I got the job, which is really quite funny. And so that's how I got into the financial advice industry was by completely by accident.
Okay.
But I stayed because I had always cared deeply about humans. I thought I would do something in human resources, maybe leadership training or development. That's what I was going to school for. And so this this financial advice job was really just a part-time thing to help me get through school.
Okay.
But then I quickly found out how much it matters to all of us. I was a college student, so I didn't really know that much about money. I mean, I knew a little bit, enough to be in college, but that's not very much. But I started learning like, man, money matters so much to us and it's so confusing to most of us. And so I stayed because I care about the humans. I got into the business because it was an accident, but I noticed behavior and then the sketches started happening and the New York Times column happened because I kept having these meetings with clients where we were trying to make a really important decision. And these were smart, successful clients. And I would get this blank stare back. I was trying to explain a concept and I get a blank stare back. And one day it dawned on me, these are really smart, successful people. The fact that they're giving me a blank stare is not their fault. It's my fault. And out of like a kind of an act of desperation, I was like, I better try one more thing. And I stood up and used the whiteboard, which I'd never done before. And I tried to draw out, like sketch out like a square, a circle, and some arrows or something. And I remember the first time I did that, I remember which clients it was even. Their names were Dave and Diane. And I remember them saying, "Oh, now we get it." And so again, kind of like by accident,
Hmm.
and then I found out like we all learn a little bit better. It started helping me. So I figured if it helped me, it would help others. So I started putting them online, and then one thing led to another, and New York Times asked me to do it for them, and that led to the books, and that's where we are today.
Okay, interesting. You answered. I was going to ask you specifically about when the sketches like jump in on the story. What drove you to the extreme of going to
Yeah.
sketch stuff and like
There's
I'll either lose
desperation.
clients because I'm sketching stuff,
Yeah.
or we'll get somewhere. So that's
Yeah.
interesting. And and I was even before we're talking here, I was even trying to like uncover your New York Times sketches and all of that, and I found like an archive where they hold like most of it. It's and it was super interesting to go back and see like how the work has evolved from like maybe longer texts with the sketches to a very refined version nowadays and stuff that's like super laser focused nowadays.
Yeah.
And another thing that I meant to ask is there's also a shift from like market terms and conversations to a more existential take on money and our
Yeah.
relationship with money. So when does that start to when does that start to flourish and come about in your work?
Yeah, that's really fun that you, I mean, really interesting and cool that you noticed that. Well, the problem that I was interested in and wanted to solve early on was mainly around investments. It was noticing that this is certainly a problem I had, and my friends and then clients, we would tend tend to make mistakes that, with the benefit of hindsight, look really obvious. And a lot of them were around our behavior. So we would often get scared. We'd often buy high and sell low. And that doesn't make any sense. Like it doesn't it except when you understand people's behavior. Like we're hardwired as a species, humans are, to get more of what gives us security or pleasure. And we're hardwired, this one's really important. We're hardwired to run away as fast as we can from anything that's going to cause us harm. Like where I'm from in the mountains of Utah, like I'm pointing out the window, like a grizzly bear showing up at my door. I'm going to run. I don't have time to think about whether I should run. I'm just going to run. Well, that shows up with our investing often, right? Like when everybody else is happy and excited on the television and they're waving their hands saying buy, 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 and your neighbors are doing that and your friends are doing that, you feel like you should buy. Well, that's almost always, when are people happy like that? That's after it's gone up quite a bit, right? So that's how we end up buying high, which sounds so obvious, but it's really tricky. And then when everybody is running for the exit, selling, nervous, scared, the news is bad, the economy is bad, political leaders are fighting, your friends are selling, the people on the TV are scared. You think, if I don't sell, that lion's going to eat me. Well, it turns out that if you were to solve that investing problem, it makes no sense to sell a really well designed portfolio just because the market's down, because the market goes down and then it goes up and you won't be there. So I thought a lot about, how do you solve that problem? And it turns out that the only way I've found to solve that problem is by having, if we're going to get ourselves and other people to say no to behavior that feels critical, you used the word existential earlier, it feels like an existential threat. And I need to sell. Everybody else is selling, don't you see? If I'm going to get you to say, or myself to say no to that desire to sell, I need to give you a much bigger yes, a much more important yes. And that much more important yes is most likely closer to your financial plan, reaching your goals in 20 years. What's really deeply important to you, like for me, time with my family, mainly outside. If I can link our investment decisions to reaching those goals, I have a chance. I have a chance at solving that behavioral problem. So that's why the shift from investments to deeper things like financial purpose and financial planning happened.
Nice, nice, interesting. And I think it's nice to mention that you were in the trenches when the 2008 crisis hit and all of that, because most of our financial advisory business here never went through, or most of the professionals never went through something like that. We went through COVID, but it was like, oh, 6 months later, we're back on track. We didn't have the I think the emotional stress that came with the 2008 crisis. It took years to recover and all of that. I think that sets the tone a little bit to from where we came from and how we got here. I'll just show everyone, like I got your book here,
Mm.
which is the purpose of our conversation. Our clients will be getting one of it as we have the translated version. I just want to show everyone like a little bit of how it's designed
Mm.
and this shows to me like how far we've come, like to the clean sketches and the clean text and trying to get like to the as you say, like the minimal version of everything that can communicate an idea. It's curious to me. I find myself like maybe uh, 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 in your shoes, but like years and years ago, like still writing a lot about a lot of stuff. So it's really inspiring to have this sort of material to be able to use with clients. And I'd like to jump in straight to one or a few sketches that
Sure.
I like to go through with you here, so we can uh, uh, show everyone a little bit of uh, what's inside. We go right here. So I got a few. I plan to go through just three, four of these, like in themes. Uh, and the first ones, do you see my screen, Carl?
Yep, I do. Yeah.
So the first ones are the ones that are really like the bigger picture of your work for me. Like this, trying to bring the contrast of life and money and put these things into perspective and trying to like make the importance of money smaller in relation to everything else that is to discuss, right?
Yep.
And I would love if you would tell or go through that brief story you have about New Zealand, where you'd ask people what they do
Yeah, yeah.
that relates to this sketch specifically, and then we'll move to the next one, which is the real financial
Yeah.
planning here.
Yeah, so we moved to New Zealand in 2016 for what I thought would be a year. It turned into 4 years and then a year in London. And I've spent a lot of time traveling because of my work. And I've noticed this, and I don't know about Brazil. It's interesting to think about. But in the United States, money and work have become the organizing principle of our lives. Like we fit everything else in around it. Like I'll fit sleep in around it. I'll fit the kids in around it. I'll fit my health in around it. And there might be some structural reasons for that, like I need to keep work because I won't have health insurance if I don't. And that's a completely different discussion. But I noticed in other countries this wasn't always the case. And in New Zealand particularly, I remember we lived in a small town on the South Island. Things might be different even in Auckland, to be honest. But I remember I would always ask people the question we often ask here in the United States when we first meet someone. Hey, what do you do for work? And I did that for a while until one of my friends who had introduced me to a bunch of people and seen me do this said, he was like, "Hey mate, why do you ask that question? Like that's not the that's not the important question, right? The question should be like, tell me about your family, or what do you like to do, or what are you doing for your next holiday, or how was the surfing this morning?" And I thought that was really, really fascinating because money and work are only a small part of what we do. And let's say we're working full time and picking up extra shifts. It's still, right? It's important, but it's not the most important thing. And I think we've sort of lost the plot in some ways. Like we start to say, I am a plumber, I am an electrician. And we forget, like, I am a husband, I am a father, I am a human being, right? Like we forget that. And so I'm just suggesting, at least for myself, this was just an exploration around putting things in proper priority. That doesn't mean work is less. It doesn't mean I should work less necessarily. I don't know the answer to those questions. It just means work is actually a means to an end, and the end is a meaningful life. It's not an end in and of itself.
Love it. Love it. Nice. And I feel we've gone so far to the other opposite of money and work defining life that it's great to have, it's refreshing to have like voices like yours pulling us to the other opposite. So we can find like somewhere in between that works a little bit better than at the extreme we've
Yeah.
all been.
And Nars, like I mentioned, there are some structural reasons for that. Like those of your listeners who feel a lot of pressure around how to make enough money to make ends meet and how to have enough money to buy a house. Like those are real. You're not just thinking incorrectly. Those are actually really structural changes in our economy that are tough. And I get that. I feel it too. And right, even with that, I think we need to keep in mind like a meaningful life's the goal, not more money.
Mm, nice. Nice. And when it comes to the second one here, I'd just like to share this one with like our fellow advisors, because this one for me is what really made me think and rethink our practice throughout the years. And I've always found it fascinating that the first impact it had on me is much different than the impact it had on me throughout the years.
Mm,
Because and it's in Brazil specifically, now we're going through the mindset shift to from the commission based old school financial advisory to fee based, and people start thinking a little bit more financial planning and delivering a service than just selling products. And it's interesting to me that even as the shift is occurring, we're always drawn to the money part. Like, oh, okay, now I'm a fee-based advisor, I'll take care of you, and here are products that are inexpensive or better products. And we're always drawn to the number, the money side of this diagram here. And what I've always found fascinating as really a teaser, something for people to keep in mind is lately I've been looking at it and I've been feeling like if we do the work on the money side for 10 years, 15 years, and the client never finds the intersection with his life, so you bid the markets for 10 or 15 years, it's a waste
yeah.
of time for everyone. And if you do the work on the life side and figure out your priorities and etc., maybe even if the money part is not the best, oh, you didn't beat the market and etc., you still have a chance of getting out of that with like success or meaning.
Yeah.
So I've always found it fascinating. Like every time I come back to this one, something else pops on my mind, and it's something that I think our profession over here can really use this idea of I would sum it up as sometimes I say to friends, maybe what the client needs is the inefficient tax solution,
Yeah. Yeah.
like the bad solution, the bad
Yeah.
financial solution. Maybe what he truly needs is the one solution where he pays more taxes but can go on a trip and don't worry about his portfolio for 6 months to a year or something like that. So
Yeah.
it's interesting how that one evolved for me throughout the years. It's one of the first ones I think I saw years and years ago from your work.
Yeah, it's important to keep in mind, like your initial example, and if just both advisors and non-advisors who listen to this, like it's possible. I mean, let's pretend for a minute, hypothetically, that it would be possible for you to outperform the market every quarter. And again, I'm saying that hypothetically. And it's possible that you could do that and still not meet your goals, your financial goals, your life goals. Like beating the market is not a financial goal, right? It's possible that you could beat the market and not meet your goals. It's also possible that you could have a portfolio that never beats the market and you still hit all your goals. Like, which one would you rather choose? Like, we'd much rather choose meeting our goals. And then I love your example about inefficient. Like, my favorite example here in the US, at least, is paying off your mortgage. You know, like if I have a, which is like actually my situation. I have a more, we just refinanced because we were lucky when we bought our house. It was just pure luck. It wasn't skill. Our mortgage is at 3%. Well, I can almost assuredly now find investments, even really safe investments that will do better than 3%. But I still love paying down my mortgage. And so that's not the spreadsheet answer, but I have actually been to parties celebrating when people pay off their mortgage. I've been to mortgage payoff parties. I've never been to a awesome, beautiful portfolio party, right? Like, so sometimes it's okay. Like we just keep in mind and your life side is like, what are you trying to do? Right. And what's interesting about that is that takes a lot of work. That happens over time. You know, we don't, we're, it turns out I'm not very good. And I don't think most of your listeners, most humans aren't very good at actually knowing what we want. We have an idea of what we want. And then sometimes we get there and we think, I thought I'd love this new car. 2 weeks after I got it, I'm like, yeah, it's no big deal. Or I thought I would love retiring to a sailboat. And then I get there and I'm like, I don't even like this. I don't even like to sail. So that's okay. We just need to remember to kind of pay attention to it. Like sometimes I call this goal clarification over time. And I think that's a really valuable part of the financial advice process is helping ourselves and helping clients get clear about their goals over time by running little experiments. And then we can align, here comes the money, right? We can align your use of capital, your use of money with what you found out is important to you over time. And that process will never end. Because just about the time you feel like, oh, this is what I want, you're going to be like, I think we want to travel a little bit more. And then, like, we've had this experience after 5 years of traveling a lot, we're really enjoying not traveling. And it's been 4 or 5 years now. We can start to feel like just the other day, my wife was like, I'd love to go back to London. So a meaningful life changes. And so aligning your use of capital with what's important to you, I think, or your money and your life, that's real financial advice.
Nice, nice. Lovely. I think we can do one more to wrap it up.
Sure.
Uh, I had two sections here, like one about perspective, the sketches that like provoke us on different ways of seeing the way of
Right.
interpreting whatever we have. But maybe I'll save it for later because there's two things that really fascinate me about the work you're doing and what the book accomplishes, which is the perspective thing, like putting everything in different perspectives and helping people uh, 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 see life through a different lens, if you may,
Yeah.
but also the sort of acceptance part that comes from not being able to have it all and understanding that uncertainty and stuff like that is part of the process. So I would jump straight to maybe this one about values and the idea of tension that you like to bring about between conflicting stuff, which is something that truly hit me when we were together this last September. And I was like, this is interesting because I feel a lot of people struggle with this, either professionals or clients, like with the idea of balance and maybe the balance that doesn't exist or will never truly exist. And if you could go a little bit down that road of the tension between the things,
Yeah.
I love to hear that.
Yeah, I mean, here's an interesting statement just to sort of think about. Um, if you may even want to write this down and just let it like live with it a little bit. There are no solutions. There's only trade-offs. Which I think is really interesting. Like, especially when it comes to financial planning, it's you're always making trade-offs. And maybe the goal isn't to resolve or find ultimate balance because I'm going to submit you're never going to find it. Maybe the goal is this tension we feel between competing values. And like an easy one, since we've talked about it a little bit already, would be adventure and stability, right? Like I want to go travel. I love building my community at home. I love having people over to our house for dinner. I want to be in New Zealand. Like the example there on the screen was the present and the future. And maybe the goal isn't to resolve that. I'm a big fan of tension. When you think about tension, I think about like tension keeps bridges up. And maybe it's just learning to live with the tension in the right way. I think of it as it, there might be a time for adventure. This might happen every day, right? Like, oh, you know what? I feel like getting outside. You know what? I feel like staying home and reading a book. This evening, I feel like having lots of friends over. Tomorrow, I might feel like having a fire just with my wife, a fire in the fireplace with my wife, right? So learning to live with that tension, and I used to think those things were, I'm glad you picked this one, because my favorite line in the whole book, which again was worth the 25 years it took me to write this. I would do it all over again for this one line, because when I stumbled across it, it was so important to me. And the line is, your values aren't at war, they're in conversation. And I used to feel like I was always at war with my values. Like, adventure is fighting against stability. Or this could be a conversation with a spouse. You want to pay down debt. I want to start a new business. You know, that I used to feel like those were fights. Those were wars of competing values. And now I realize, no, it's just a conversation. And once I realize it's a conversation, new ways of solving it can emerge. And I can say, oh, I understand why you want to pay. And the other thing that happens when it's a conversation is you often find shared values. You want to pay down debt. I want to start a new business. Oh, that's interesting. Tell me why you want to pay down debt. Oh, I want to feel like the family's secure. Oh, that's interesting. Tell me why you want to start a new business. Oh, I want to feel like the family's secure. Then we get to this interesting place where we can say, okay, turns out it's not about paying down debt or starting a new business. It's about the family being secure. Are there other ways we could realize that? Maybe we can. So, like, as soon as it becomes a conversation, we get to solutions, or at least we get to ideas about how we can manage or live with this tension. If it's a war, we never do, whether it's a war with someone else or internally. And so I think that's really, really important. Like to just start seeing your values are not at war. They're in conversation.
I love that. Yeah, yeah, I love that. I did that on purpose because I love hearing you speak about it, and you do it better
Mm.
than anyone. And that one has also been like a big one for me lately. Like, oh, that really strikes something. I don't know where, but I really
Yeah.
really strikes something in me, and it really helps. And I think everyone is sort of one way or another, or at some point in time or another, on the same spot that you mentioned, like
Yeah.
feeling like it's a war. So I love that, and I love how that takes us to the core of what the book's meant to be, which is a lot more than just money and investments
Yeah.
and all of that.
Yep.
So thank you for that. Thank you for that. I'd just like to say, like, for everyone that's not really familiar with your work, it truly shows that the book is like 20 years of distilling
Mhm.
messages into like the finest print possible.
Yeah.
So our clients will get it as soon as it's out, and I would strongly recommend everyone to just keep one at home, like
Well,
within
thank you.
arm's reach. Yeah,
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks, Nars. This was really fun.
yeah, appreciate it. Thank you so much for the time, Carl.
You bet.
Yeah, bye.